All right, commissioners. Looks like we have 9 participants online, so it's 6:30 now, and we are live on the YouTube channel. So if you'd like to get started, I think we're ready to go.
Good evening, everyone. It's Commissioner Chris Richardson. This is our 25th Town Hall meeting, by my count, and the first one that we've done with using remote technology. So I'd like to thank the folks that did join us tonight. Hopefully we get a few more on as we move forward. Could you move to the next slide, please? Yeah, so even though the format's changed, our purpose hasn't. We really have looked at these town hall meetings over the last several years as an opportunity to kind of discuss with our constituents, with the citizens of the county, uh, what's going on, get a chance to hear what concerns and issues folks have out there, and really provides more of an opportunity for back and forth discussion versus our standard kind of business meetings where what's on the agenda is what we really discuss. And if there's public comment, it's generally not something we can take on and discuss in depth during the meetings, and potentially goes on to another meeting where the person who actually brought up the issue may not be present. So just have found these very valuable over the time. Next slide, please. Yeah, so here's the agenda we'll be following tonight. Like I said, we've already done kind of our intro and purpose. I'm going to talk a little bit about the current situation with COVID-19 in the county, how we're handling remote hearings and meetings. Rick's going to talk a bit about access to county services, what's changed and what hasn't during this period. Grant will discuss a bit on what we're seeing as potential budget impacts, and then some thoughts on reopening and recovery once the crisis is passed or lessened. And hopefully we'll do this in about the first 15 to 20 minutes, and then we'll open it up for questions and answers and on these topics or any other that folks have. I do ask is when we get to the Q&A portion, we do have some hearings that are going on. This isn't the appropriate time to provide testimony or thoughts on those hearings. We can talk about the general conduct of hearings, obviously. And then there's a capability on this program to, if you just kind of hover towards the bottom of the screen to comment or react, there's one that's just a hand wave. If you use that to indicate you'd like to ask a question, we'll open up your mic, but we'll get to that in a little bit. So just moving on to the next slide, we'll talk the current situation in the county with regards to COVID and what's going on at state level. Alrighty, this is kind of a quick and dirty, just the numbers that we're looking at right now. We held a Board of Health meeting earlier today at noon. If you go to the county's Facebook page and to the YouTube channel, you can review that. As about a 45-minute, pretty in-depth review provided by Dwayne Smith, our public health manager. So I would encourage you, if you got other specific questions on a little more in depth than we have the knowledge of, that's a good place to start. And then the county website has a COVID-19 tab at the top that's got quite a few resources, information, and particular information regarding the county. But on the slide itself, just kind of balancing across the numbers we've been tracking as commissioners are shown here, and it indicates probably a little bit of what has become a frustration for us, and I think most citizens, is just the depth of information that's available to people, what you have to make decisions on. I mean, we know the number of folks that have been tested for COVID-19 in the state is about 40,000. We don't know how many of those tested actually reside in our county, and that's not just because we're being left in the dark. This is the same for any county out there. It's just the numbers that are being tracked and presented are rolled up at the state level. We know that about 8,000 people in the state have tested positive, and within the county, about 17 or exactly 17 have tested positive. Now, that doesn't mean that we know how many actually are positive. As was reported today, it's potentially 4 to 10 times that number. So I think there's some assumptions floating around that about 25% of the population has contracted COVID and may be asymptomatic or have very slight symptoms that have passed before they even knew what it was. The number hospitalized in the state, again, a little over 1,500. We don't know how many of those may be residents of Elbert County, and that number is a cumulative number. It's not necessarily the number of folks that are currently in the hospital in the state. So what's not being reported at the moment or being captured is the number recovered across the state. And these are yesterday evening's numbers that were reported. 329 deaths in the state, and unfortunately, one of those was in Elbert County. And then across the state, currently 56 counties have at least one person that's tested positive. Within our county, only 2 of about 12 zip codes that fall within the county or overlap are affected. And that's 80107, the Elizabeth area, and 80138, the Parker addresses in the northwest corner. But together they comprise well over half of the population of the county falls in those 2 zip codes. At the state level, the first case or cases were presumed positive, tested on March 5th. We had our first case on March 16th. That was the date that we, as a county, declared a countywide emergency. The declaration of emergency allows us potentially to tap into funds to reimburse our expenses related to addressing this issue, and then later recovery, as is the state's emergency, which was declared on March 10th. The stay-at-home order that we're operating under at the state level was issued on March 26th, and currently is projected to roll through the April 26th. We'll talk a little bit more towards the end of if that is actually the end or what the rollback from that may be. Many of you may have heard that the governor extended his emergency declaration for the state through the 15th of May. That, like the emergency declaration that I talked to in the county, that's a mechanism that allows the state to tap into federal funds for reimbursements and other federal assistance. It doesn't mean that the stay-at-home order was extended through the 15th of May. So hopefully that clarifies a little bit. And again, when we open this up for questions, feel free to ask away. Next slide, please. Alrighty. Colorado's got some pretty strict laws requiring openness in government, sunshine laws, if you would, that they fall under the Colorado Open Meetings Act, which does allow and envision electronic public participation. It's not specified in the law how that happens, just that it may. A few weeks back, we got an all across the state, the Attorney General issued guidance that indicated what was appropriate participation. It did note that general meetings did not necessarily require public input or public comment during the meeting, but people still had to have access in order to watch what their government was doing. In our case, we have been streaming the meetings that we have had. I think we've had 2 Board of Health meetings and 2 Board of County Commissioner meetings since this began that were streamed live via our YouTube channel. So folks have been able to participate in terms of hearing what's going on, watching what's going on. We do recognize there's some limitations to the audio in the room that we'll continue to work on. But we want people to know what we're doing. We have limited the number of meetings that we've had and try to bundle just the necessary actions so we're not constantly calling meetings that aren't needed. It allows us to keep fewer people together in the room where our clerk to the board doesn't have to be here monitoring and making notes during a meeting, and just trying to keep as much social distancing as possible and remote work by our staff. Hearings are a different matter. For a public hearing, we have to be able to hear from the public. We've determined at this point that Zoom, the software we're using for this town hall, is really the best way to accommodate that. But we're committed to full and fair hearings. If we can't, if we're not comfortable that we're not really getting a good hearing of the issues and the concerns of the public, we will continue hearings. We may open them if they've already been scheduled. We had this situation last week with the Planning Commission prior to the stay-at-home order being issued, and while I believe gatherings of 50 people were still allowed under the state orders, a hearing was scheduled for an application that was coming before the Planning Commission. Because it was noticed publicly and signs had been put up, I know much to the consternation to some folks because the signs went up at the appropriate time before the hearing, but after the stay-at-home order, the Planning Commission did hold a meeting via Zoom to open the hearing, and then after some discussion on the ability to actually hear from the public, they made what was the correct decision to continue it. Now, I would say at that meeting that they held that evening, there were 41 people online, so there was good turnout, but unfortunately the folks that were most affected live in an area where internet connectivity and cell phone connectivity was very bad. So the folks most affected were probably the least able to participate, and for that reason it was continued. But we're going to continue working the system just so we can learn how best to use it, where it works and where it doesn't, and ideally continue the work of the government to serve the citizens as best we can during this period. And with all hearings, land use and otherwise, we always have taken alternate comment by email, by US Postal, or, and at times we've had folks call in on speakerphone to do so. So for our BOCC meeting next week, the intent right now is to hold that via YouTube Live. And if there are folks that would like to contribute, comment to that, obviously email and mail always works. And if there's somebody that would truly like to interact over the phone, we just ask that they let us know through the public information officer's email address the day before, and we'll call out to folks during the meeting for their comment. So I would encourage anybody that hasn't to go to the clerk and recorder's page. There should be a link there to sign up for the sunshine list. When you're signed up, this pushes a notification to your email whenever a publicly noticed hearing or meeting is taking place. And the agendas on those will have information on how to access if we're still doing remote meetings at that time. And then do encourage folks to keep an eye on our website and social media. We're trying to put out as much information as we can throughout this period that's helpful to our citizens. With that, I'll pass this over to Rick to talk a little bit about current access to county services. Thank you.
Good evening. Rick Pettit, Elbert County Commissioner, District 2, and I'm going to talk about the access to the county services. Almost all the services that were face-to-face are still available, except for fairground rentals, the campground. The campground does have a few exceptions for critical workers. We do have a few campers up there that are construction workers that are in and camping up there, but that's the only people allowed up there. And as far as the concealed weapons permits, those have been delayed until after the crisis is over, but emergency permits can be issued. Now, the other county issued permits and authorities are going to extend until 2 weeks beyond the end of the declared emergency. And at this point, we do not know when that is going to be, and we're going to have to work through that as we go along. But, you know, the county buildings are closed to the public, but you should be able to contact the different offices by telephone, email, you know, or on the Facebook. Up at the Samuel Elbert building, they do have the drive up for renewals, and they are coming up so that they can also do new titles and things like that. But if you've got a title that for a new vehicle or anything that you're going to be selling, you need to go to their website, because they do now have information up on what information you need to bring when you are trying to process a title, so that you aren't showing up and then finding out you don't have the correct information that you need. So I know at one point they were having trouble getting that handled, but that is up at handling. There is a drop box up there at the said building also. And as far as the taxes, you can mail the taxes in, or you can drop them off through the drive-through at the Samuel Elbert building and things like that. So as far as the tax department, you should be able to get your taxes processed on time and everything like that. But they do have where they can waive interest and fees up to, I think it's about the 26th of April. If you decided you wanted to pay the first half of the taxes and you hadn't done that, so that you could delay paying the second half until June 15th if you're originally planning on paying them all on April 30th. So if you need any more information, contact the treasurer's office for that information. As far as law enforcement, road maintenance, construction, child and adult protection services, victim assistance, building inspections, they all remain operational. You should be able to email in plans or drop them off. There is a drop-off box on the stairs just outside the main entrance to the administration building. So if you've got any questions, contact either the building department or land use, and they can tell you what you need to do as far as continue to getting your plans in, getting them checked, building inspections, or any other things that you need. They are doing some Zoom meetings for pre-application or application meetings. So the biggest thing is to contact the departments and get the information. But we are trying to maintain all the services that we do provide to keep moving forward. And at this time, I'll turn it over to Grant.
Yeah, one of the things that this virus is doing is with the business shutdowns and people doing less commerce and things like that, there's going to be significant budget impacts, or maybe significant budget impacts to Elbert County government. We began 2020 with about $17 million in reserves across all funds. Included within that was about $5.2 million, which we call restricted stability and contingent funds. I call it a rainy day fund, but the whole point is if we have some kind of a catastrophic event or the budget income goes down in a very large sort of way, we'll be able to continue to provide goods and services to our Elbert County citizens. One of the things that I've been spending some time here lately, as has all the staff and the other commissioners, is we've been reviewing what portions of our budget income are susceptible to some issues. By that I mean reduced income. There's several of them, including sales tax, specific ownership taxes, which is related to new car purchases, HUF funds, which is related to driving because it's a gasoline related tax. We've got LEAF funds. That's how our sheriff's office is very busy right now, and he may not be issuing as many traffic tickets as before. Building permits. We don't have any idea how this is going to be impacted. I've talked to several developers and builders, and they're basically taking a nap right now, waiting to see how all of this stuff is going to unfold. Planning fees, impact fees are all going to be impacted. And I've done some elementary analysis there, and it could be anywhere from $1 to $3 million in terms of county income. That assumes that things don't get any worse than we hope. If this basic shutdown of the public lasts for a long period of time, those fund differentials are going to be significantly greater. On the good news is that we talked to the county treasurer this morning, and our property taxes are right about where they were scheduled to be. It appears like that our property, which is a significant part of the budget income, look like that they'll be on track for the year. Looking forward, though, if this virus continues to impact life in the county for an extended period of time, it may well affect future property values, and also it'll affect us under the Gallagher Amendment, which will mean the percentage of assessed value as compared to appraised value will be reduced. All of these things will over time impact our potential impact. So the question is, okay, that's the bad news. The good news is that hopefully, and we had a meeting with the Board of Health this morning, hopefully we're reaching a point where perhaps the statewide stay-at-home may be lightened up a little bit and people will be able to go back to work. One of the weaknesses I love statistics, and I've been spending quite a bit of time looking at economist projections, and this virus may have put us into a recession. And the one thing about a recession, one person, at least certainly me, doesn't know how long it'll last and to what extent its impact is. But we'll continue to do analysis on a routine basis to make sure that if these situations do exist, that we're capable and in the process of planning and doing strategic planning so that we do not get impacted any more than is absolutely necessary. Will the stay-at-home stuff be extended? I'd like to tell you that I had a good idea of that. We're waiting for input from state and federal people. I hope that the period doesn't last too much longer. We'll just have to wait and see. I do really strongly believe that everyone in the county wants us to reopen businesses as soon as practicable. It has to be safe, it has to be logical, and we have to do it recognizing that there are competing inputs here, one being the medical preservation of life and safety and all those kind of things. But also we have to look at individuals and the social aspects to unemployment, reduced expectations, isolation, even perhaps some things like mental issues and things like that. We anticipate that there'll be a staged reverse of the path to stay at home. I wish I could give you a better outline of what that means, but we fully expect that the opening of business and activity in the county will not happen overnight, but it'll happen over a period of time. We urge people to be wise. One of the things that I strongly believe in the citizens of Elbert County, that they'll make good decisions. And if it's appropriate, stay home. If you're sick, isolate. All of those kind of things are just logical, reasonable things that people do. Limit public gatherings. You know, that's one of those things that I'm sure everyone on this call here have seen where churches were impacted in a big way, and different areas handled that situation differently. We understand that for a time anyway, that there'll be a limit on public gatherings, particularly when the question of social distancing is impacted. Physical distancing, limit the number of customers, things, all of these things will be part of the stage, I hope, opening of life again. We trust our citizens to act responsibly. Take care of yourself. And I look forward to you when I can shake your hand again. Thank you.
All right. I believe we might actually be one slide behind. There was one that was marked recovery that Grant spoke to it. It didn't get up there. So yeah, just before we roll to the questions, I do want to thank every one of our citizens. There's been a big burden placed on everybody here, and we recognize that. We know folks. There's a lot of folks that have been furloughed. There's a lot of folks that have been laid off or lost jobs. We've got local businesses that are struggling, that provide goods and services that people probably could use during this period. So as Grant was saying, as soon as it's appropriate, as soon as we can safely get things back open, that's our desire. We also know, I mean, people's liberties have been stepped on. We can always trust the folks in this county to do the right thing when they've got good information. As I kind of said at the beginning, some of the information we've got is pretty scant. So I know there's a lot of frustration out there, and we'll keep working through this to the best of our abilities. Once people are free to move around, as Grant said, we expect people to be doing the same things they were doing wisely prior to the stay-at-home order coming out. Folks that were sick were staying home. Folks that needed medical attention were seeking medical attention. If you go back to the Board of Health meeting that was held earlier today, there is a online tool that the state will be pushing out soon that allows folks to essentially report on their condition. I know there's a lot of folks that probably aren't comfortable with, putting out their information online. But as you could see at the beginning of this presentation, there's a lot of information we don't have on our own county. Like I said, we certainly trust folks that shouldn't be out to not be out. But the more fidelity we have on what's going on and where, the better decisions we can make if they are left to us of what portions of the county, what aspects of businesses can be opened up, what level of social gatherings can safely be done. So I would ask when that becomes available to look at it, make your own best decisions, and report if you feel that there's something that would be of use for folks. I can assure you that the county would not share any of that information inappropriately with anybody. But we'll move now to Q&A, and Eileen, if you could move to the next slide, please. Thank you. I'm not sure on my screen as a panelist if it's just me, or there was potentially a reaction button. If that's not there, there is a Q&A text box. If there's anybody that has a question, I'd ask you to use that Q&A box. If you hover towards the lower part of your screen, it'll show up, and then you can kind of signal us that you'd like to ask a question, and we can have our moderator unmute you, and we'll go from there. The kind of rules of the road are up here. We don't have anybody attending by phone. If they were, or if you do in the future, *9 is kind of used to signal that you'd like to speak, and it'll kind of alert on our screen so we can see who wants. I do ask folks just to, when we unmute you, to give us your name and address, so just so everybody knows who's talking, and do ask just one question per person, and we'll just rotate until time is up. And again, as I mentioned earlier, if there's a pending hearing before us, land use or otherwise, that you have an opinion on, I do ask that you just hold that opinion until a hearing is actually ongoing. Otherwise, we potentially have conflicts, and we need to record and make sure that anything that is testimony to us here is introduced into the record during those hearings. So with that, do we have anybody that would like to ask a question or has a comment?
Commissioners, this is Eileen. We currently have 12 attendees, and I've got them up on my screen, and I'm not seeing any raised hands or requests to speak just yet, but I will let you know when that happens.
Because we are happy to keep talking. And we promise we won't call on anyone. Oh, we do have, looks like Belinda Seville had raised her hand.
Belinda, you're unmuted, so go ahead.
Belinda's showing is still muted on my screen. I don't know if there's an action on her end.
Is that better?
That is better. Hello, Belinda. How are you?
Hello. Thank you so much. Belinda Seville, 3992 Bonnie Ridge Circle, Elizabeth. Commissioners, thank you so much for doing this. I trust it'll become just more well-known and understood, and people will participate. I think this is such a great way, especially as people are in isolation, to stay connected to you all and have a sense of what you guys really, as the fathers of our community, are doing. And so I really appreciate that. That being said, do you anticipate doing this kind of format weekly, monthly? We are navigating times that we don't know too much in the future, but just what are you guys thinking as you ponder kind of navigating the county through these times?
Yeah, thanks, Belinda. I think, honestly, more is better when it comes to communication. Quite honestly, the biggest thing we have to offer as a county right now is information to our citizens. You know, we don't have a county hospital. We are doing our best to keep our first responders equipped with what they need, but for actual service to the citizen above and beyond what we normally do, information is the best thing. And I think we're open to doing these more often, more frequently, and when appropriately, when time changes. Potentially, with the stay-at-home order expiring on the 26th, I am assuming, I am hoping, and perhaps we will start demanding that the state give us more information on what the intent is during that week prior, so we know what to tell our citizens. So potentially we can schedule something in that week. So, just there is more. I'm glad this system is working. We had talked some, as I said, we've done 25 town halls. This is the first we've done electronically. In the past, we've tried to pick a different geographical location and done 2 meetings back to back each quarter, so people could come to either if the day was bad, but we tried to move that around the county. So perhaps do it. We have talked about, going forward at the very least, even in normal times, perhaps 1 meeting each quarter would be of this type electronically, where anybody that has a good connection could join, and then we'll do a physical one face to face at somewhere else within the county. So I do appreciate the input, because I think everybody, certainly including us, kind of have a thirst for knowledge about what's really going on, and why some decisions are being made, and certainly getting feedback from our citizens so we can send it forward and up to the state is of value too. I mean, there's a lot of commissioners clamoring around the state for more information and better information, and I know that's the way our citizens feel as well. So thank you.
I would say, if you haven't signed up for the sunshine list, that you do that. Because I would think that if we get some important information that we need to get out to the citizens and schedule some more of these meetings that aren't at a normal time, that we'll be posting those, and it'll also be out on the sunshine list to make as many people aware. So I would suggest, if you haven't done that, that you do that at this time.
Yeah. And I guess the other is just looking at the timing of these. I mean, we've always for the last 4 years, we've done these at 6:30 to 8 because it gives time for folks to get home from work. And I know it's a little tight for some of those that travel out of the city, but we get done by 8 o'clock, so people can, get home and work with their kids on homework if they need to, or other work to do. But if we're all pretty much sequestered in our homes, then time is stopping. Doesn't have as much meaning as it once did, but we can look at doing things during the middle of the day, since folks are all available. Well, with that, do we have anybody else that has any comments or questions?
Commissioners, it doesn't look like we have anybody else who's interested in raising their hands or weighing in. So absent any additional input, I don't know if you have any final comments.
Yeah, I think that would be good. Grant, I'll turn it over to you if you got some final comments, and Rick, and I'll close out.
Yeah, this is kind of a generalist comment. And one of the things that we as all commissioners and county staff, want to make sure that our county citizens have confidence in the commitment that the staff and the commissioners and all the other electeds have. And this is the first one of these we've done online like this, but it may turn out to be something we do very regularly. The most important thing that I want you to know is, even though that the office is not open for general walk-ins, we're available. If you call us by phone or text messages or whatever, we will make every effort to satisfy any questions that anyone in the public has. And thank you for being part of our evening.
I would just say, as we move through all these processes and stuff, depending on how long we're in the same situation, if you got any suggestions or whatever on how we can make things better, whether it's dealing with any of the departments or other elected offices and stuff, to let us know, so that we can to try and help the citizens to the best of our capabilities.
Yeah, again, just do thank everybody that participated tonight. Yeah, we do have an incredible county. We've seen it every time there has been an emergency, whether it was the Forest Ridge fire, the bomb cyclone, flooding a few years back, the Black Forest fire before that. This is certainly the most extended period of emergency or crisis, however you want to describe it. But similar to every other one, the folks of this county come together. Talking with some of the folks that run our local food banks, certainly their use is up tremendously, but the amount of people that are donating goods and money is keeping up with it, because folks are very giving, and that's great. Local organizations are stepping forward. We've had offers from several nonprofits just asking what they can do. We're trying to find a place for everybody that has something they can give to give, because I think that's very important in people keeping the community connected as well. Our local Chamber of Commerce, I know, has been reaching out, working with businesses. We've got other networking groups that are trying to keep everybody connected. That the whole term social distancing seems to be slowly replaced with physical distancing, and I think that's probably appropriate. I think, as it was mentioned earlier, just being able to come together and see each other's faces and talk about issues that are important to us, beyond the members of our household, I think is good for everybody. So again, I do thank everybody that participated tonight. Thank you, Eileen, for pushing slides and pulling things together from your secret abode in northern El Paso County, and it just shows how well we can make a lot of things work with folks distributed. Tonight, the three of us met in our conference room so we could look over each other's shoulders and kind of help each other through, but there's probably no reason, once we get a little more comfortable, that these can happen from our offices or our homes, and we can just kind of keep this line of communication open. So thank you for coming out tonight. I appreciate all you do, and we will get through all of this together. Thank you very much. Have a great evening. Good night.